Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, how to pivot your life direction. Brought to you by FinancialFreedomTool.com. Plenty of money for life.
Big Success with the Professor and Mary-Lynn.
We're so excited to be joined by the power couple of power couples today, Mark Victor Hansen and Crystal Dwyer Hansen. Mark is best known as the co-creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul, one of the best-selling book franchises of all time.
Crystal is an entrepreneur, coach, and author of Skinny Life, The Secret to Physical, Emotional, and Spiritual Fitness. Both are here with us to discuss their fantastic new book called Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. Welcome to the Big Success Show, Mark and Crystal.
Thank you. We are so happy to be here.
Thank you, Mary-Lynn and Professor George.
Thank you.
Well, you're married and you wrote a book together? What?
Not only that, we love each other. Totally. That is a big success.
I know. We honestly didn't know how that was going to go when we first started. You know, who knows? Like, how do you write a book together? But it went amazingly well. We just kind of both took the baton and ran with it where we were strong, and we just kind of went back and forth and did what we did well, and it came together amazingly well.
Well, now, who asked who? Crystal, who asked who to do the book?
You know, that's a good question. Well, we started noticing just a pattern that most people are, you know, smart, likable, often educated, have really good things going on for them. They want great things in life, but the difference between those who are really getting what they want in terms of success and happiness and those who aren't are those who are better askers. And it really started becoming clear to us, and we would talk about it. We have this morning prayer meditation hour that we do together, so we talk about these kinds of things, and a lot of things come out of that time together, and we said, this is a thing. This asking thing is a real thing. And we look back on our own lives and said, you know, just kind of retraced our own journeys and thought, we are where we are today because of our ability and our willingness to ask. And we discovered there are 3 channels through which you can ask, and that is ask yourself, ask God, and ask others. And so we started peeling it apart and started interviewing other people, and the stories really supported our original theory, and that is those who have success and happiness in life happen to be really good askers.
Wow, that's incredible. And the book is called Ask. So, you know, why is asking so important?
Well, asking gives you everything, and the subtitle is The Bridge from Your Dream to Your Destiny. Because your show is called Success, I said to myself, you're going to ask us what success is. So I just wrote it down here. Success is the fulfillment of your life's destiny by asking. I've never written that before this morning, and it's inspired by the two of you all.
Well, thank you. Glad we could help.
It's the least you can do, George.
Exactly. Jeez. There's a reason I got up this morning. I just knew it.
That's right.
No, we're very thankful. We think asking is going to cause the most impact of any book I've written, and I've sold 500 million books, 308 bestsellers. I slur my own words, 308 bestsellers. So it is sort of astounding that, you know, I told Crystal when we started writing it, because it just came together so fast and so divinely that I said, holy cow. Asking is one of those tool technologies that every one of us is given at birth, and we're told to ask and you shall receive, but no one ever taught us how to ask. So the way we write books is we write everything we know first, and then we say, well, who is it would be what we call today as a master asker, and what did they get? And the example is like Jim Stovall. His whole life, he'd asked himself, how am I going to become the best football player ever? I want to be in the NFL. He's 18 or 19 years old. He gets recruited. His dream is coming true. The doctor says, I'm sorry, kid, you're not. He said, what do you mean I'm not? He said, you got 6 months and you're going to be totally, absolutely, permanently, and forever blind. Wrecked, crushed, smashed, squished this guy's life, sort of like what's happening to a lot of people that are in isolation. He's self-incarcerated in a 9x12 room with a radio, a telephone, and a television. And he's complaintive. His parents said, look, Jimmy, go down to the blind meeting. Maybe they can do something for you. He gets down there and they're doing the same thing he was doing. But this time he sits next to a woman who's a blind stenographer. And he said, you know, I used to love to watch TV and movies, and I loved to see a right hook thrown or that. somebody ought to do something about that. Now, here's the pivotal question for everybody's life. Why can't we be the ones that do something? And that's everybody listening's got to catch that. Why can't we be the ones that fix this? And he started to think about it and talk about it, and they created narrative TV. Now, all the four of us are sighted, so we don't know this, but narrative TV does exactly what he said. 14 million people every day pay to watch streaming narrative TV if you're blind, movies and TV. And it's been amazing. I get to meet him. Charles Tremendous Jones, one of the great speakers, calls me up and said, I know you're selling 15 million books a year, kid, but you got to read this book. I said, man, Charlie, I'm busy. I love you, and you're a great friend. But he said, this book will change your life. So I read The Ultimate Gift by Jim Stovall, and I'm so wowed. I write the foreword and the endorsement, and I say, this book's got to be a movie. And Jim now says he's endless. I've never met him except by telephone. I'm endlessly thankful for you doing that, because he says, and we do his interview in our book, he says, I now write books that I can't read. And I make movies that I can't see. And he's made $100 million on a movie called The Ultimate Gift and Book, which is, just so powerful. Books can change your life. And we think this is going to be the most impactful, life-changing book history's ever had. And I know that's pretty professorial of me to say so, Professor.
Hey, you got to shoot high, right? Aim big. That's what we always say. Well, go ahead, Crystal.
Go ahead, George. Well, I was just going to say, the thing about asking is all of us get stuck in life, right? Again and again and again, we have pitfalls and setbacks. But when you're stuck, the best thing to do is just sit down and start asking questions. And it's almost like you can't mess this up, because we did a lot of research for the book. And what we found was that when you start asking yourself questions, a different part of your brain goes to work for you. And it's the part of your brain that does critical thinking. So often when we're stuck, we're just like get mired in our complaints. So like Mark was saying, and we keep getting sucked further into the morass. And if we just stop, take 15 minutes with ourselves and say, what's going on right now? What do I need to do differently? Is there another opportunity for me? Why did this happen? Where am I going from here? How could I start today to make myself better? In this situation we're all in right now, if someone gave me 3 or 4 weeks of free time to rebuild myself, what would I do with that? Right? I mean, a lot of people are looking at this as like the worst thing that ever happened. But if we look at it differently, could it be the best thing that ever happened? What a question that is, right? Because we have this time and the government's stepping in to cover this time for everybody. We'll get through it. But gosh, if we think of this as a vacation, a time that we were just gifted to rebuild ourselves, rethink things, look, examine, that's part of the ask yourself part, which is what we always start with. Asking yourself and really re-examining your life is so important. And we need to do it again and again and again. And every time we do that, when we start to ask ourselves those questions, we get a new idea, we get a new solution, we get a new illumination, we get a new plan. And it's really, honestly, such a magical process. When you start to do it, you will be amazed.
Well, and what's interesting is there's a very inspiring story in the book about you, Crystal, because you mentioned how asking questions allows you to start pivoting your life direction. So how did you pivot?
Well, you're so right, Mary-Lynn. I would say one of the worst times in my life, and it's always it's your worst, but it could be your best time, and we need to remember that. It's always your worst and best time because it depends on what you do with it. But I was a very young mother. High school was very easy for me. I graduated at age 16, thought I knew everything, against my parents' wishes, married a guy who was 5 years older than me. And it didn't work out. So I end up a couple years later with a baby on my hip in a new city, no way to support myself, and absolutely no idea what I was going to do, truly. And so I applied for food stamps. I thought, well, we have to eat. So I figured out how to do that. And the first time I stood in that grocery line and I was ready to turn over those food stamps, this huge question just hit me. First of all, I was like, how did I get here? And the second question that just popped up right after that was, am I really doing the best I can, or am I taking the easy way out? And as I said that, it's like time slowed down in that moment, truly. I mean, I remember it as clear as day. To this day, I remember that moment because everything slowed down for me. And as I was handing those food stamps over to the cashier, I said, this will not be my future. And I went home, went back to my little tiny apartment that I couldn't even afford. I was getting eviction notices every month. And I started asking myself, how do I get a job tomorrow? How do I start working tomorrow? And I'd heard about the temporary service agency. So I applied for Kelly Girls. But then as I looked it up, I saw there were other temporary service agencies. And the way they did it is they would call you and give you a choice of jobs you could say yes or no to. So I thought, well, I'm going to register for all three of them. I don't see any rules here that no one asked me if I was registered for others. So I'll register for all three of these service agencies. That way I'll have a better choice of jobs.
Makes sense.
So I started doing all of these interesting, honestly, very interesting different jobs. I was working in attorneys' offices, filling in. I was setting up booths at malls. I was working on, special project sales jobs, like when conventions would come and things like this. And I started to discover something about myself. I discovered that I was pretty good at business and, pretty good at sales. And that I really loved people. I loved being out with people and interacting with people. And so that led me to deciding to go to real estate school and become a licensed realtor. And so literally like a year and a half from that time that I was turning those food stamps over to the cashier, a year and a half later, I was working for the top home builder in our valley. And I became the number one realtor for that home builder. And I had also hit up some modeling agencies because people said, oh, you should do some modeling. So I asked them if they were interested in signing me, and I ended up getting signed with one of the top modeling agencies here. So on the side, I was doing some television commercials, which gave me full benefits because Screen Actors Guild, once you book, residuals, you get these benefits. So suddenly me and my little guy have full benefits, and life is just like the pivot my life took was so drastic. And I often think back about that. I've thought back on that time many, many times in my life and thought it would have been so easy to collapse into, my panic, into my worry, into like my helplessness or hopelessness. But when you start asking questions, it takes you to a new place, and those ideas start to come and you start to challenge yourself. And it is truly life-changing. No matter what part of life you're at right now, it will change your life if you just sit down and start asking those questions of yourself, asking God what your bigger destiny is. How do you fit into this big kingdom, this big universe, And that really is a great feeling too, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. And then how do you ask others? Because we need to be each other's best resource. That's what we're here for. But we're not comfortable with asking.
I love that story. I mean, that's just amazing.
It is.
But here's my question. So I'm an old dog.
Sure.
Are pivots for young people, or maybe I could say, have I missed the mark, Mark?
Arc. I want to give a remarkable answer if you don't want.
Great.
I love you guys.
You're quick on your feet, man.
Yeah, well, we're young enough to remember Art Linkletter, and I wrote a book with him, and we said, look, you've got to pivot. And we said in our book, How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life, you've got to not retire, but retire your car. You got to put in new tires in your car and go in a new direction, because you need to have this whole thing that we're saying in Ask is that you got to have a destiny that's bigger than you, a destiny that's better than you. Because if you sit down and you complain about being isolated right now, you're going to involute. And we're saying, hey, look, the goal is to evolute. The goal is to grow. The goal is to add dimensionality. The goal is to figure out the opportunity. The goal is to say, hey, look, this thing is going to get over. But when it's over, your job may or may not be there. 80% of the jobs are going to be there, but that means 20% aren't, based on my copious reading. And if that's true, then what is it you're going to do when it's over? And that's why I love Crystal's story, because she said, what is my full potential? And that's what this book is asking everyone to do, is write out the answer. What is my full potential? Well, a slam dunk, did what I wanted to do, could do, and was a human becoming. What would I become? And when I went bankrupt in 1974, I did the question that we're teaching under Ask God, which, as I said, God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? And you say it 400 times before you go to sleep at night, and you'll wake up, and in the middle of the night, it came up that I was supposed to be a professional speaker and writer. And I thought, oh, like to me. Anyhow, I went to breakfast and because then I asked myself, okay, can I really do this? So I went to breakfast and I asked my 3 roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York at the time where I was living. And I said, hey, any of you guys know somebody that's young, not a cotton top, not a doctor, not a lawyer, not something else that is a professional speaker or something like that? And they said, oh yeah. My roommate John said, I'm in real estate and the guy out there speaking to the MLS this morning at 9:00, you will love him. He's a few years older, but he is phenomenal. I raced my little beat up old Volkswagen to bankruptcy courts hadn't taken and mesmerized for 3 hours, at the end of which I asked, because ask others. I'd ask God. God told me what to do. I asked myself, can I do this? I'm not sure. And then now I'm asking a guy who's making a fortune doing it and a few years older than me. And I said, can I take you to lunch? He said, I like a free lunch. And I asked him, I got an idea he ended up paying because I didn't really have any money. Anyhow, I asked him all the questions. He said, look, kid, if you stay out of the real estate business, go to life insurance business, train them. It's a bottomless pit. 90% turnover, 1,800 companies. You'll never finish your work. And so without knowing what life insurance or premium was or anything, I went full blast. I was doing 4 talks a day,
Wow.
After 2 weeks. I did, Tony Robbins and I talked one time, and we said both of us are the only guys that ever did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years in the business. So you get pretty good. And then in between times I was selling because I had nobody but me. So I was, working 18 hours a day. I didn't mind. I'd talk at 6, 1 at 10, 1 at 2, 1 at 8. And in between I'd sell other seminars, and it really worked. And, because we were in the pits then too. Mm-hmm. And what Crystal and I are saying with asking, you've got to ask yourself, how are you going to get out of this quagmire, and how are you going to get everybody else out of the dungeon of isolation? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you talk about, and so we went to the second part of the book because the whole pivot idea, with our entrepreneurial flair, I guess, it kind of really stood out to us. But the first part of the book is all about the roadblocks. And I guess as we go through life, do we kind of accumulate more roadblocks, or does our willingness to ask fade away?
Yes. That's exactly what happens, George. So as children, who are the best askers in the world? Children.
Why?
They're unashamed. They're endlessly curious. They ask, I want this. Can I have this? What's this? And that gets shut down as we grow, as we learn, as we go to school. The teachers, you're the authority. You're here to listen and learn. Be quiet. Only ask if you're called on to ask. All of these things. So little by little, our ability to ask gets shut down. We get shamed or embarrassed or whatever it is. And so we, at this point, it's time to look at it. We discovered there are 7 roadblocks to asking. And it's important in the book, and it's really important to go through those and identify. Usually we all have at least one of those. Mm-hmm. And you can get rid of those. It's really about awareness. And we have some beautiful stories of, examples of those roadblocks.
What is one of the biggest roadblocks?
Well, unworthiness is huge. I mean, a lot of people really just have this sense of it just can come from our childhoods, come from our experience, whatever, that we're not really worthy. We're not quite good enough. We're quite not enough to have what we would want to ask for or to achieve what we would want. That's a huge one. And then there's just flat out fear, and it's really just like fear of rejection. And what that fear really is this feeling that everything kind of comes back to love, that you're not going to be loved or accepted. Everyone wants love and acceptance. So better that I don't ask, because if I'm rejected, it means I'm not loved, And so if we can just become aware of those and realize those are lies we tell ourselves, or they're just patterns that we've accepted that have accumulated throughout our lives. And we're just not going to do that anymore. Those aren't acceptable. And we're going to go forward fearlessly and start to learn to become master askers. And when we do that, everything will change for the better.
That's fantastic. And I got to tell you, so this is for our community. When I opened this book up and I saw just the table of contents, and I'm looking at the 7 roadblocks, and I said to myself, I didn't know these 2 knew me so well.
George, with your permission, you guys are a joy to talk to, and I'm sure your community is loving it. Once I stop laughing, I want to talk to that, because I think we got a lot of resources in America. America's resourceful more than anything else. We've got some big problems right now. And the question about, can I fix it? Is it what we all got to do, no matter what our chronology, whether we're young or seasoned? And those of us that are seasoned got to come back maybe and solve some of these problems, because right now there's 750,000 jobs I just read this morning in the news that are unfulfilled. And what happens is those of us that are awake, alive, enthusiastic, and are willing to dust off our shoulders and say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to overcome all those roadblocks. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to go in a new direction. I'm going to source and serve somebody. And, we worked obviously with Art Linkletter until he was 98 years old. And the only reason he transitioned out of life was not his health, but he missed his wife so desperately. And my older brother, we do this story about his stubbornness. He missed his wife, Priscilla, so much. So the point is that it's okay. But if you're physically here, we believe you got to ask yourself, what is my destiny now? What is a new thing I can do? And there are 4 billion people that are illiterate in the world. Everybody that's listening to your show, I do believe, is going to be literate, meaning that they can read past the second grade level.
Well, these are hopeful words, and words that I think we all need to hear, especially at this time. So, and any time, really. This book is incredible. The book is called Ask: The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. Where would you like to ask people to go to learn more and keep up with you and the book?
We love to stay in touch with everybody. We love people, and we love to hear your stories. We really do. So you can get the book right now at Amazon.com. You can get it on, the physical book or Kindle. It's a beautiful hardbound book, by the way. It's like one of those books that you're going to highlight and pull out again and again. So either way. And when you do go there, we have this really cool plan. We want to do the biggest book club ever. So if you want to get an invitation to that book club, please write to us. Send us a receipt that you got the book to reception@markvictorhansen.com. And we'll stay in touch with you, send you some free goodies, and invite you to the book club so we can all discuss this together, because we want to get this dialogue going so everyone can join in and everyone can become a master asker. It's going to serve all of us to rise together. And like Mark was saying, there will be a lot more opportunity. It's going to take a little while for us to come back, but I think it's going to be faster than we think. There will be new opportunities because we've also realized some important things through this shutdown. I don't think anyone knew that all of our pharmaceuticals and all of our Advil and all of our everything was being manufactured in China, in a different country where if someone's upset with us, they can just say, sorry, you're not going to get your shipments. And so I think Americans have awakened to a new reality that, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have maybe we shouldn't have closed those 60,000 factories, to raise corporate profits and taking them over to China. Maybe we need to bring those back home. And maybe it's okay to pay a little bit more. And even if corporate profits aren't as high, Americans will have great jobs. And I think everyone's realizing that in a very big way. The opportunities will be bigger than ever. So how are we all going to participate in that? There will ultimately be more jobs than we've dreamed of through this awakening. I'm calling it an awakening.
So what we're doing, let me hitchhike real quick and say we're doing the Ask Challenge, and go to reception@markvictorhansen.com, because what we're going to do is challenge America to come back and be so benefacting to America. And the point is that this decade, now we're going to get going again, is going to do 50 trillion. That's not with a B, that's with a T, with all the new breakthrough stuff. And we need the senior guys like you and I, George, to roll up our sleeves, come back and say, hey, look, I'm going to pivot. This is the most exciting time alive. I'm only excited when I'm creating and when I'm contributing. I mean, that's very spiritual stuff I'm talking about here, right?
We love it.
So you're only happy if you're creating and contributing. At least that's my experience. And we live in a place that used to be considered an old place, right? Scottsdale, Arizona, rich old people live here. Now the average age here is 32, because young people made a lot of money, live in this glorious place, and it's sunny and beautiful. But the fact is, everybody we talk to is thinking again, and we need senior people with great, crystal clear, hard work experience that is ready to go get some results and have the rubber hit the road again. And America is in that place, and it's inevitable that some of them are going to repivot and say, hey, wait a second, it's boring as hell being locked down. So I'm going to go out and do something with some younger people. And even when Art and I wrote that book, we said, You've got to solicit 2 20-somethings every year and befriend them and work with them. And we do way more than that because we're Horatio Alger Award winners. So we mentor a lot of kids, Crystal and I.
Right. So yeah, go to Amazon.com, you guys, get the book. Let's stay in touch. You can also reach out on our social media. I'm at Crystal Dwyer Hansen, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Mark, of course, is Mark Victor Hansen.
I'm the real deal.
Well, that's fun. What an absolute delight to be able to spend some time with you two today. Thank you so much.
We've loved every minute. Thank you both. And thanks for all that you do.
Until next time,
Here's to your big success.
Find big success at biggsuccess.com.